She found the perfect man. But her bold grandma had other plans. Maya Collins had always believed she was good at reading people. Years of working as a hotel receptionist taught her how to recognize arrogance disguised as charm, desperation hidden behind expensive suits, and loneliness buried beneath polite smiles. But nothing in her experience prepared her for the moment she met Daniel Hayes, the man who seemed so perfect it was almost suspicious. It happened on a rainy Tuesday evening, the kind that made the city look like it had been washed in gray paint. The lobby of the Grand Crescent Hotel buzzed with the usual chaos. Delayed flights, frustrated tourists, and executives who treated customer service staff like decorative furniture. Maya stood behind the front desk, posture straight, voice calm, smile professional, the armor she wore every day. "Excuse me," a voice said gently. Not impatient. Not demanding. Gentle. She looked up, and forgot how to breathe. The man standing before her was tall but not intimidating, handsome but not in a way that screamed for attention. His dark hair was slightly damp from the rain, his coat simple but clearly expensive, and his eyes, kind. Not the fake politeness of wealthy guests. Real kindness. "I think I dropped my wallet somewhere in the lobby," he said. "Would anyone have turned it in?" Maya blinked, forcing her brain to resume normal function. "Let me check for you, sir." She searched the lost and found drawer. No wallet. "I'm sorry," she said. "Nothing has been reported yet." He exhaled slowly, not angrily, just disappointed. "That's unfortunate. My ID cards, everything is in there." Most guests would have started complaining immediately. He didn't. Instead, he gave her a small, apologetic smile, as if he felt bad for inconveniencing her. "It's all right," he said. "I'll retrace my steps." Maya hesitated, then spoke before she could overthink it. "Wait." She stepped out from behind the desk, technically against protocol, and scanned the marble floor. Near a decorative plant, something dark lay half-hidden. "There," she said, pointing. He picked it up. His wallet. Relief softened his face in a way that made her chest tighten. "You just saved my life," he said, laughing quietly. "Or at least my week." "You're welcome." He paused, studying her name tag. "Maya," he said. "Thank you, Maya." The way he said her name felt personal, warm, dangerous. Then he left. And Maya stood there wondering why her heart was beating like she had just run a marathon. That night, she told herself it meant nothing. Guests came and went. Attractive men existed. Life continued. But the next day he returned. And the day after that. Always polite. Always calm. Never demanding. He asked about her shift hours. Brought coffee by accident. Once, he left a small box of pastries at the desk with a note. "For the hero who saved my wallet." Her co-workers teased her relentlessly. "He's obviously into you," said Chloe, another receptionist. Maya shook her head. "Men like him don't go for women like me." "Women like you?" "You know," Maya muttered. "Normal. Invisible." But she wasn't invisible, not to Daniel. 2 weeks later he asked her out. Not flashy. Not dramatic. Just honest. "I know this might be inappropriate," he said quietly, "but I'd regret not asking. Would you have dinner with me sometime?" Her brain screamed this is a terrible idea. Her heart whispered say yes. She said yes. Dinner felt unreal. No bragging. No phone checking. No condescension. He listened. Really listened. When she talked about her mother's illness, he didn't interrupt with solutions. He simply asked, "That must be hard. How are you holding up?" No man had ever asked her that. By the end of the night, Maya knew she was in trouble. Because Daniel Hayes wasn't just attractive. He was kind, stable, grounded, safe. Everything her past relationships had not been. The perfect man. And then she made the mistake of telling her family. Her parents were cautiously optimistic. Her younger brother demanded to meet him immediately. But her grandmother, Eleanor Collins, had a reaction no one expected. "Oh, I already know him," Grandma Eleanor said casually, sipping her tea. Maya froze. "What?" "Yes," Eleanor continued. "Met him last week at the community center." "That's impossible." "He helped me carry groceries," her grandmother said. "Very strong. Very polite. Gorgeous shoulders." "Grandma." Eleanor leaned forward, eyes sparkling with mischief. "I like him." Maya groaned. "Please don't embarrass me when you meet him." "Embarrass you?" Eleanor scoffed. "Sweetheart, I'm going to interview him." The meeting happened that Sunday. Maya spent the entire morning nervous. Not about Daniel, about her grandmother. Eleanor Collins was famous in the family for 3 things. She spoke her mind. She feared absolutely nothing. And she had zero concept of too much information. When Daniel arrived, holding flowers for Maya and a separate bouquet for Eleanor, the old woman's eyes lit up like a predator spotting prey. "Well, well," she said, circling him slowly. "You're even better looking up close." Maya wanted to evaporate. Daniel, however, smiled warmly. "It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Collins. Call me Eleanor," she said. "Or Grandma if you're planning to stick around." Maya choked on air. Eleanor leaned closer to him and whispered, loudly enough for everyone to hear, "If you break her heart, I will bury you in my garden." Daniel didn't flinch. "I believe you," he said calmly. "And I promise I won't." Something in his tone made the room go quiet. For the first time, Eleanor looked genuinely impressed. Dinner started pleasantly enough. Then the interrogation began. "What do you do for a living?" Eleanor asked. "I run a consulting firm." "What kind of consulting?" "Corporate strategy." "How much money do you make?" "Grandma." Daniel chuckled. "Enough to live comfortably." "Do you drink?" "Occasionally." "Gamble?" "No." "Cheat?" His expression softened, not defensive, just sincere. "Never." Eleanor studied him for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. "Good answer." Maya finally relaxed. Until Eleanor added, "You know, if Maya doesn't marry you, I might." "Grandma." Daniel burst out laughing, real laughter, not polite. And somehow, instead of being awkward, it felt perfect. Later that evening, as Daniel helped clear the dishes, Eleanor pulled Maya aside. Her voice dropped, serious now. "That man is different." "I know." "No," Eleanor said quietly. "I mean really different." Maya frowned. "What do you mean?" Eleanor looked toward the kitchen, where Daniel was carefully stacking plates. "He carries himself like someone who's seen hardship," she said. "But he treats people like they matter. That combination is rare." Maya swallowed. "I think he might be the one." Eleanor smirked. "Oh, sweetheart," she said. "I knew that the moment he walked in." Then her eyes twinkled again. "But I still plan to flirt with him. Just to keep him on his toes." That night, after Daniel left, Maya lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her heart full and terrified at the same time. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a future that didn't involve disappointment. A future with him. But she had no idea that both she and her bold grandmother were about to discover something shocking. Because Daniel Hayes wasn't just a perfect man. He was hiding a truth that would change everything. And when it came out, some people would regret ever underestimating him. The night respect was tested. The next few weeks felt almost unreal, like Maya had stepped into someone else's life. A life where good things happened without a catch. Daniel didn't overwhelm her with grand gestures or dramatic declarations. Instead, he showed up in small, consistent ways that slowly rewired her expectations of what love could look like. He remembered things. Not just birthdays or favorite foods, but tiny details most people ignored. He noticed when she was tired before she admitted it. He brought soup when her mother had a difficult day. He fixed the loose cabinet door in her apartment without making a big deal about it. And perhaps most astonishing of all, he treated her grandmother Eleanor not as an obstacle, but as an equal. They developed an odd, almost competitive friendship. If Maya invited him for dinner, Eleanor would insist he arrive early, so we can talk without interruption. If he brought flowers, she would critique them like a professional judge. "These roses are acceptable," she declared once. "But next time lilies. I prefer lilies." Daniel nodded seriously. Noted. Maya often watched them together with disbelief. Because her grandmother didn't like people. She evaluated them. Dissected them. Usually dismissed them. But with Daniel, she was entertained. And dangerously fond. Everything changed the night they attended Maya's cousin's engagement party. It was held at an upscale restaurant downtown, the kind with crystal chandeliers, polished marble floors, and staff trained to treat wealthy guests like royalty while barely acknowledging everyone else. Maya almost didn't want to go. Family gatherings meant comparisons, subtle judgments, and relatives who still thought her job at a hotel was temporary. Daniel insisted gently. "Your family matters to you," he said. "So they matter to me." Even Eleanor seemed unusually eager. "I want to see how he behaves in public," she whispered to Maya. Character reveals itself under pressure. When they arrived, heads turned. Not because of Maya, she was used to blending into the background, but because of Daniel. He wore a simple charcoal suit, no flashy watch, no designer logos, just quiet elegance that radiated confidence without trying. And he never let go of Maya's hand. Her relatives noticed immediately. Whispers followed them across the room. Who is he? Is he famous? He looks important. Maya's cousin Lena rushed over, glowing with excitement and champagne. Maya, you made it. She looked Daniel up and down. And you brought a +1. This is Daniel, Maya said. Daniel extended his hand. Congratulations on your engagement. His voice was calm, sincere, not performative. Lena blinked, slightly thrown off by his composure. Thank you, she said slowly. Then she leaned toward Maya and whispered loudly enough to be heard. Where did you find him? Maya flushed. He's my boyfriend. Daniel's thumb brushed reassuring circles against her palm. At first, everything went smoothly. Until Maya's uncle Victor arrived. Victor Collins was the type of man who measured worth by money, status, and the ability to dominate conversations. He owned several construction companies and never let anyone forget it. He approached like a storm cloud. Well, he boomed, eyeing Daniel critically, this must be the famous boyfriend. Daniel smiled politely. Nice to meet you. Victor didn't shake his hand. Instead he asked, so what do you do? Consulting, Daniel replied. Victor snorted. That's vague. I help businesses improve their operations. Oh, Victor said dismissively. So you're one of those people who talk a lot and don't build anything. The air around them tightened. Maya opened her mouth to defend him, but Daniel squeezed her hand gently, a silent request to let it go. I try to be helpful, he said simply. Victor leaned closer, voice dropping just enough to sound intimidating. You know, Maya's dated some questionable men before. I hope you're not another one of those dreamers living off her kindness. Eleanor appeared at Maya's side like a hawk spotting prey. Victor, she said sweetly, if you have something unpleasant to say, at least have the courage to say it properly. Victor smirked. Just looking out for family. Daniel met his gaze calmly. I appreciate concern, he said. But Maya doesn't need anyone's protection. She's stronger than most people realize. Maya felt her throat tighten. No one had ever said that about her before. Dinner was announced shortly afterward, but the tension lingered. They were seated at a long table, Victor directly across from Daniel, a placement that felt deliberate. Halfway through the meal, the restaurant manager approached. His smile was thin, rehearsed. Excuse me, he said, looking only at Maya. There's been a small issue with seating arrangements. What kind of issue? She asked. Well, his eyes flicked toward Daniel's simple suit, then back to Maya. This section is reserved for premium guests. We'll need to move you to the other side of the dining room. Maya blinked, confused. But we were assigned these seats. I understand, he said, tone cooling. However, we must maintain certain standards. Standards. The word hung heavy in the air. Victor looked amused. Lena looked embarrassed but said nothing. Maya's cheeks burned. She suddenly became painfully aware of her modest dress, her inexpensive shoes, her job that didn't impress anyone. We can move, she murmured, already half rising. Daniel didn't move. Instead, he looked directly at the manager. May I ask, he said calmly, what standard we are failing to meet? The manager shifted uncomfortably. Sir, please don't make this difficult. I'm not, Daniel replied. I'm asking a question. The manager leaned closer, voice low and condescending. This area is for our most distinguished clientele. Eleanor's chair scraped loudly as she stood. And my granddaughter is not distinguished enough? She demanded. The manager barely glanced at her. I'm simply enforcing policy. The entire table had gone silent. Maya felt humiliation crawl up her spine like ice water. She hated this feeling, being judged, dismissed, made to feel small in public. Daniel finally released her hand and stood. For a terrifying moment she thought he might argue. Instead, he reached into his pocket and handed the manager a sleek black card. Not a credit card. Something else. The manager took it casually, then froze. His face drained of color. His posture changed instantly, like a puppet whose strings had been yanked upward. I am so sorry, sir, he stammered. There must have been a misunderstanding. Victor frowned. What's going on? The manager bowed slightly to Daniel, bowed. Please accept our deepest apologies. Your table will remain exactly as it is. In fact, we would be honored to provide complimentary service for the remainder of the evening. Maya stared, heart pounding. Daniel took the card back without comment. Thank you, he said quietly. The manager retreated like a man escaping a firing squad. The silence at the table was deafening. Victor's smug expression had vanished. Lena looked confused. Even Eleanor was watching Daniel with narrowed, calculating eyes. Finally, Victor cleared his throat. So, what exactly was that? Daniel picked up his water glass. Just clarification, he said. But Maya knew it wasn't that simple. She leaned closer, whispering urgently, Daniel, what was that card? He hesitated. For the first time since she'd known him, he looked unsure. Something from my work, he said carefully. Nothing important. Nothing important. Yet the restaurant manager had practically bowed to him. Across the table, Eleanor didn't blink. She was watching him the way a detective watches a suspect. Patient, sharp, relentless. After dinner, guests gathered near the dance floor. Music filled the room, laughter returning as champagne loosened tension. Daniel excused himself briefly. Victor immediately leaned toward Maya. You didn't tell us your boyfriend was loaded. I didn't say that because I don't know that, she snapped. Victor smirked. Come on. That was power. Real power. That kind of reaction doesn't come from a normal job. Eleanor tapped her cane lightly against the floor. Victor, she said sweetly, if you continue being unpleasant, I will accidentally trip you. He leaned back, grumbling. Maya turned to her grandmother. Did you know about this? Eleanor's eyes gleamed. No, she said slowly. But I suspected. Suspected what? That he's not just a nice man, Eleanor said. He's a dangerous one. Maya's stomach dropped. Dangerous. In a good way, Eleanor added quickly. The kind of dangerous that protects, not harms. Maya wasn't reassured. Daniel returned a moment later. His smile was gentle, but something had shifted. Like a curtain had been pulled back just enough to reveal depth she hadn't seen before. Would you like to dance? He asked her. She nodded. On the dance floor, he held her carefully, respectfully, as if she were something fragile and precious at the same time. Are you okay? He asked softly. I should be asking you that. He exhaled slowly. I didn't want tonight to turn into that. Into what? He looked at her, eyes full of something complicated. Into a reminder that the world can be unkind to good people. Her chest tightened. Why does it matter so much to you? She whispered. His voice dropped to almost nothing. Because you matter to me. She rested her head against his shoulder, feeling his steady heartbeat beneath her cheek. For a moment, everything else faded away. The music, the whispers, the unanswered questions. Just warmth. Safety. Home. Across the room, Eleanor watched them with sharp, thoughtful eyes. She leaned toward Victor, who was still staring suspiciously at Daniel. That young man, she said quietly, has a storm behind his smile. Victor scoffed. Or he's hiding something. Eleanor smiled, not kindly. Oh, he's hiding something, she said. But I don't think we're the ones who should be worried. Later that night, as Maya and Daniel walked outside under the glow of streetlights, she felt both happier and more unsettled than ever. He slipped his jacket around her shoulders without being asked. Cold? He asked. A little. They walked in comfortable silence for a while. Then she stopped. Daniel, who are you really? He didn't answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet but steady. Someone who doesn't want to lose you. Her heart skipped. That's not what I asked. I know. He took her hands, holding them gently. Can you trust me, just a little longer? She searched his face, looking for lies, manipulation, anything that felt wrong. All she saw was vulnerability. And something else. Fear. Slowly she nodded. I trust you. Relief washed over his features so intensely it almost hurt to see. Thank you, he whispered. But neither of them noticed Eleanor standing in the restaurant doorway, watching. Her expression was not amused. Not approving. Not suspicious. It was the look of someone who had just realized the situation was far bigger than anyone else understood. And for the first time in years, Eleanor Collins looked worried. The day the perfect man was publicly humiliated. 3 days after the engagement party, Maya thought life had returned to normal. Daniel still walked her home after late shifts. He still texted good morning. He still listened to her ramble about customers who treated hotel staff like disposable objects. And Eleanor still interrogated him like she was preparing a background check for the federal government. But something had changed. Daniel was quieter. Not distant, just thoughtful. As if he were carrying something heavy he hadn't decided how to set down yet. Eleanor noticed immediately. You're thinking too much, she told him one afternoon while Maya was making tea. That's dangerous. Thinking leads to decisions and decisions lead to trouble. Daniel smiled faintly. You might be right. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. Whatever secret you're carrying, she said, you'd better make sure it doesn't hurt her. His smile faded. I would never hurt Maya. Eleanor held his gaze for a long moment, searching. Then she nodded slowly. Good, she said. Because if you do, I will ruin you. Daniel didn't doubt her for a second. The real trouble began when Maya invited him to a charity gala hosted by Victor. She didn't want to go, but her mother insisted. It's good for networking, Pilar said. And Victor promised it would be elegant. Eleanor snorted. Victor's idea of elegance is expensive and loud. Still, Maya agreed, mostly because Daniel offered to accompany her. If it's important to you, I'll be there, he said. The gala took place in the ballroom of a luxury hotel even grander than the one where Maya worked. Crystal chandeliers glowed overhead. A live orchestra played softly. Guests drifted through the room dressed in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, carrying glasses of champagne like accessories. Maya felt out of place the moment she walked in. Her dress was beautiful but simple. Her heels practical rather than dramatic. She suddenly became painfully aware of every difference between her life and the world around her. Daniel squeezed her hand. You look stunning, he said. You don't have to say that. I know. That's why I mean it. She smiled, nerves settling slightly. Victor spotted them almost immediately. Maya, he boomed, already halfway across the room. You made it. His eyes flicked to Daniel. And you brought your mysterious boyfriend again. Daniel nodded politely. Good evening. Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. Hope you enjoy the event, he said. We've got some very important people here tonight. Something about the way he said it sounded like a warning. For a while things were pleasant enough. Daniel spoke easily with strangers, not boasting, not trying to impress, just listening and responding with thoughtful questions. People seemed drawn to him without understanding why. Maya watched with growing amazement. How do you do that? She whispered when they were briefly alone. Do what? Make people feel comfortable. He shrugged lightly. Everyone wants to feel seen. Her heart did that dangerous flutter again. Then Victor took the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, microphone in hand, thank you for supporting tonight's charity initiative. Applause filled the room. Victor continued with a long speech about generosity, community, and success, carefully highlighting his own contributions at every opportunity. Maya tuned most of it out, until Victor's gaze landed directly on her. And tonight, he said smoothly, we have a very special guest. Maya Collins, my niece, who brought along a fascinating companion. Daniel stiffened slightly beside her. Maya's stomach dropped. Victor beckoned them forward. Come up here, he called. Let's give everyone a proper introduction. Maya whispered urgently, we don't have to. It's okay, Daniel said quietly. We'll be fine. They walked to the stage together. Every eye in the ballroom followed them. Victor handed Daniel a microphone. So Daniel, he said, smiling thinly, tell us about yourself. Daniel hesitated only briefly. I work in consulting, he said, mostly helping businesses operate more efficiently. A few polite nods. Victor tilted his head. That's very immodest. Laughter rippled through the crowd. And where did you say your office is? Madrid, Daniel replied calmly. Ah, Victor said, voice sharpening. So you're not even local. Maya could feel the tension building like static in the air. Victor continued, louder now. You know, in my experience, men who don't explain what they really do usually have something to hide. The room went quiet. Maya stepped forward. Uncle Victor, that's not? He raised a hand to silence her. I'm just curious, he said. After all, if you're dating my niece, we deserve to know who you are. Daniel's jaw tightened, not in anger but restraint. I understand the concern, he said evenly. Victor smiled triumphantly, sensing weakness. So why don't you enlighten us? For a long moment, Daniel said nothing. Maya could feel his hand tighten around hers, not painfully, just firmly, grounding himself. Then Victor delivered the blow. Unless, of course, you're just another guy living beyond his means. A few uncomfortable chuckles. Maya's face burned with humiliation. Stop, she whispered. Victor ignored her. Because let's be honest, he said loudly, men who look that polished without any clear credentials usually aren't what they pretend to be. The insult hung heavy in the air. Daniel slowly lifted his gaze to meet Victor's. When he spoke, his voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. I'm exactly who I pretend to be. Victor scoffed. Prove it. Maya felt panic surge through her. This wasn't a conversation anymore. It was a public trial. Daniel, we don't need to do this, she whispered desperately. He looked at her, and something in his expression softened. I know, he said quietly. But I'm tired of pretending it doesn't matter. He turned back to Victor. You want to know who I am? Victor crossed his arms. Very much. Daniel reached into his pocket. Maya's heart slammed against her ribs. Not the card again. He placed a small object on the podium. A simple silver ring. Not flashy. Not decorative. But engraved with a symbol Maya didn't recognize. Victor frowned. What is that supposed to be? Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out his phone and sent a quick message. 30 seconds later, the ballroom doors burst open. 2 men in dark suits entered, scanning the room with professional precision. They walked straight to the stage. One of them leaned toward Daniel and said quietly, Sir. Victor's confidence faltered. What is this? He demanded. The man ignored him completely. Daniel picked up the ring, sliding it back onto his finger. Then he spoke, not loudly, not dramatically, but with absolute authority. I am the primary investor behind the foundation funding this entire event. Silence. Utter, stunned silence. Victor blinked. That's not possible. Daniel met his gaze. It is. Maya's world tilted. You what? Daniel turned to her, eyes filled with apology. I didn't want you to feel like you had to impress me, he said softly. Or that our relationship depended on money. Victor laughed nervously. If that's true, why didn't anyone mention your name? Because I requested anonymity. The man in the suit stepped forward. Mr. Hayes prefers privacy. Maya's breath caught. She had never heard his last name spoken formally before. Victor's face turned pale. You're Daniel Hayes. That Daniel Hayes? Daniel didn't respond. He didn't need to. Recognition was spreading across the room like wildfire. Whispers erupted. That's him. The investor from the tech acquisitions. He owns half the developments downtown. Maya felt dizzy. This wasn't just wealth. This was power. Real power. Victor swallowed hard. Well, this is quite a surprise, he said weakly. Daniel's voice remained calm, but now unmistakably firm. You embarrassed Maya tonight. Victor opened his mouth, then closed it again. And that, Daniel continued, is something I will not tolerate. Not shouted. Not threatened. Simply stated. Which somehow made it far more intimidating. Maya grabbed his arm. Daniel, please. She didn't want revenge. She didn't want dominance. She just wanted the nightmare to stop. He looked at her, expression softening instantly. For you, he said quietly. He turned back to the audience. I apologize for the disruption. Please enjoy the evening. Then he took Maya's hand and walked off the stage. No victory speech. No arrogance. Just quiet dignity. Outside, the night air hit her like cold water. She turned to him, heart racing. You lied to me. I omitted things, he corrected gently. That's still lying. Pain flickered across his face. I was afraid, he admitted. Of what? Of losing you before you even knew me. Her anger faltered. Because his voice wasn't defensive. It was vulnerable. I didn't want you to fall for my resources, he said. I wanted you to fall for me. Tears blurred her vision. I did fall for you, she whispered. That's what makes this so hard. He stepped closer, careful, hesitant. Please don't walk away. She closed her eyes, overwhelmed. Behind them, the ballroom doors opened. Eleanor stepped out, cane tapping steadily against the pavement. She looked from Maya to Daniel, assessing everything in a single glance. Well, she said dryly, that escalated. Maya laughed weakly through tears. Eleanor moved closer to Daniel. So, she said, eyes sharp, now I understand why you looked like a man carrying a storm. Daniel met her gaze respectfully. I'm sorry for deceiving you. She studied him for a long moment. Then unexpectedly she smiled. Don't be, she said. Just make sure you use that power to protect her, not hurt her. I will. Eleanor nodded once, satisfied. Then she turned to Maya. Sweetheart, she said gently, this man didn't reveal his power to impress people. She glanced back at Daniel. He revealed it because someone tried to humiliate you. Maya's chest tightened. And that, Eleanor finished, tells you everything you need to know. Maya looked at Daniel, really looked at him. Not just the perfect boyfriend. Not just the mysterious man. But the person who had stood between her and public humiliation without hesitation. Someone powerful, yet gentle. Dangerous, yet safe. Maybe he wasn't perfect. Maybe he was something better. Real. when the powerful tried to crush him, and failed. If Maya had hoped the revelation at the gala would quietly fade into the background, she underestimated two things: how fast rumors spread among wealthy circles, and how deeply her Uncle Victor's pride had been wounded. Within 48 hours, everyone in the extended family knew. Some were impressed. Some were suspicious. A few suddenly became very, very friendly. Victor, however, became something else entirely. Cold, strategic, dangerous. Maya first sensed it during Sunday lunch at her parents' house. Victor arrived late, smiling too broadly, carrying expensive wine he never would have shared before. He greeted Daniel with exaggerated politeness, the kind that felt less like respect and more like performance. "Daniel," he said smoothly, shaking his hand. "I hope there are no hard feelings about the other night." Daniel returned the handshake. "None." Maya didn't miss the subtle tension in his shoulders. Victor turned to Maya. "You've chosen well." Eleanor, seated at the table already, muttered, "That sounded like a compliment, but somehow it wasn't." Victor pretended not to hear. Lunch continued with forced cheerfulness. Stories, laughter, harmless small talk. Too harmless. Eleanor watched Victor like a cat watches a snake. Finally, she leaned toward Maya and whispered, "He's planning something." "What?" Maya whispered back. "I don't know yet," Eleanor said. "But men like him don't swallow humiliation. They digest it, and spit it back later." Maya's stomach tightened. The attack came the next day. Maya arrived at work to find her manager waiting at the front desk, arms crossed, expression tense. "Maya, I need to speak with you." Her heart dropped. "Is something wrong?" "We've received a complaint." "About what?" The manager hesitated. "About inappropriate behavior with guests." Maya stared at her. "What? That's ridiculous. There's also an allegation that you've been using your position to connect with wealthy clients for personal gain." The words felt like a slap. "That's not true," Maya said, voice shaking. "I would never." "I believe you," the manager said quickly. "But corporate is investigating. They've placed you on temporary leave." Temporary leave. Without pay. Without dignity. Without explanation to coworkers who were already whispering. Maya walked out of the hotel in a daze, humiliation burning behind her eyes. Outside, she called Daniel with trembling hands. He answered immediately. "Maya? What's wrong?" "They suspended me," she whispered. Silence. Then his voice changed, calm, controlled, terrifyingly focused. "Who filed the complaint?" "I don't know." But deep down she suspected. Victor. Daniel arrived at her apartment in less than 15 minutes. He didn't ask permission. He didn't waste time with reassurances. He wrapped her in his arms. "I've got you," he murmured. She clung to him, finally breaking down. "I didn't do anything wrong." "I know." "What if they believe it?" "They won't." "How can you be so sure?" He gently wiped her tears. "Because lies collapse under pressure." That evening, Eleanor showed up unannounced, carrying a container of homemade soup and an expression that meant business. "Move," she said, pushing past Daniel into the apartment. She set the soup on the table, then turned to Maya. "Tell me everything." After hearing the story, Eleanor didn't look shocked. She looked furious. "That little tyrant," she muttered. Daniel met her eyes. "You think it was Victor?" "I know it was Victor," she snapped. "He's trying to scare you away." Maya's chest tightened. "Scare me away from what?" Eleanor pointed at Daniel. "From him." Daniel went still. "Victor doesn't just want revenge," Eleanor continued. "He wants to prove that Maya belongs in his world, not yours." Daniel's voice was quiet but sharp. "He doesn't get to decide that." "No," Eleanor said. "But he thinks he does." The next morning the pressure escalated. Articles began appearing online. Anonymous sources questioning Daniel's business practices. Speculation about secret deals. Accusations without evidence, but written convincingly enough to cause doubt. Maya's phone buzzed nonstop with messages. "Are you okay? Is this true? You didn't know about this?" She felt like her life was dissolving. Daniel remained calm, too calm. "We'll handle it," he said. "How?" she demanded. "This is everywhere." He took her hands. "Because I've faced worse than gossip." She searched his face. "What aren't you telling me?" He hesitated. "Before I built my company," he said slowly, "I made enemies. Powerful ones." Her heart sank. And Victor just handed them an opening. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She found Eleanor sitting on the balcony, wrapped in a shawl, staring at the city lights. "You're worried?" Maya said. Eleanor snorted. Of course I'm worried. I'm old, not blind. Do you think Daniel is in danger? Eleanor considered this. Not the kind of danger you're imagining, she said. Men like him don't fall easily. But they can be worn down. Maya sank into the chair beside her. I don't want him to suffer because of me. Eleanor reached over, squeezing her hand. He's suffering because he loves you, she said gently. And because bad people think kindness equals weakness. She leaned closer. But they're about to learn otherwise. 2 days later, Victor invited the entire family to a special announcement at one of his construction sites. Maya didn't want to go. Daniel insisted on accompanying her. Eleanor insisted even more. I wouldn't miss this for the world, she said, eyes gleaming with anticipation. The site was surrounded by banners displaying Victor's company logo. Media crews stood nearby, cameras ready. Maya's stomach twisted. This isn't a family gathering, she whispered. Daniel's jaw tightened. No. It's a performance. Victor took the stage, smiling like a man who believed victory was inevitable. Today, he announced, we celebrate a new development that will bring jobs and prosperity to our community. Applause. Then his tone shifted. Unfortunately, some individuals have attempted to undermine this progress with questionable business practices. Maya's heart stopped. Victor's gaze landed on Daniel. Individuals who hide behind wealth while manipulating markets and exploiting opportunities. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Eleanor muttered, Oh, this fool has no idea what he's doing. Victor gestured toward Daniel. I think the public deserves transparency. Cameras swung toward them. Maya felt exposed, trapped, terrified. Daniel stepped forward slowly. Are you accusing me of something specific? He asked calmly. Victor smiled. I'm asking questions. Classic tactic. Daniel nodded slightly. Then allow me to answer. He pulled out his phone. Sent a message. Maya's pulse thundered in her ears. Not again. But this time the response was immediate. Sirens. Not police. Government vehicles. Several black SUVs rolled onto the site, doors opening in synchronized precision. Officials stepped out, not security, not corporate staff. Regulators. Auditors. People who only appeared when something serious was happening. Victor's smile faltered. What is this? A woman in a navy suit approached the stage. Victor Collins, she said crisply, we have a warrant to investigate financial irregularities connected to your development projects. The crowd erupted in chaos. Cameras flashed wildly. Victor sputtered. This is absurd. There must be some mistake. Daniel's voice cut through the noise. There isn't. Victor turned to him, eyes blazing. You did this. No, Daniel said calmly. You did. He stepped closer, voice low but clear enough for microphones to capture. You tried to destroy Maya's reputation. You tried to intimidate me. But in doing so, you exposed yourself. The official continued reading charges. Illegal land acquisitions. Fraudulent contracts. Kickbacks. Victor's empire was unraveling in real time. Maya stared stunned. Daniel, how did you know? He looked at her gently. Because I investigate before I invest, he said. And Victor asked me for funding months ago. I declined. Eleanor burst into delighted laughter. Oh, this is better than television. Victor was escorted off the stage, shouting protests no one believed anymore. Silence settled over the stunned crowd. Daniel turned to Maya, concern replacing authority instantly. Are you okay? She nodded slowly, tears filling her eyes. You didn't destroy him, she said softly. No, Daniel replied. He destroyed himself. Eleanor joined them, triumphant. I told you, she said proudly. Bad men dig their own graves. Sometimes they just need a little shovel. Maya laughed through tears. For the first time in days she felt safe again. As they walked away from the chaos, Daniel slipped his hand into hers. None of this changes how I feel about you, he said quietly. She squeezed his hand back. Good, she whispered. Because none of it changes how I feel about you either. Eleanor snorted behind them. Finally, she muttered. All this drama and you're still not kissing. Young people today have no urgency. Daniel laughed, a real relieved laugh. Maya realized something in that moment. He wasn't just powerful. He was gentle with his power. And that was what made him extraordinary. The choice that proved he was truly perfect. After Victor's arrest, silence settled over the family like the aftermath of a violent storm. Phones stopped ringing. Whispers stopped spreading. Even the news cycle moved on to something else. But for Maya, everything felt permanently changed. Not just because her uncle's empire had collapsed, but because she had finally seen what Daniel was capable of when pushed too far. Power, influence, precision. Yet when he stood beside her, he still held her hand like she was the most important thing in the world. And somehow, that mattered more than everything else. Her suspension from work was lifted within days. The hotel issued a formal apology, citing false allegations submitted in bad faith. Several co-workers avoided eye contact, embarrassed by how quickly they had believed the worst. Maya returned quietly, refusing special treatment. Daniel offered to intervene. She refused gently. "I need to stand on my own," she said. "Not behind your power." He smiled, proud rather than offended. "That's one of the reasons I love you." Her breath caught. It was the first time he had said it out loud. She didn't answer immediately, not because she didn't feel the same, but because the words suddenly felt too big, too important to say casually. Eleanor, who was visiting that evening, nearly dropped her teacup. "Well, about time," she muttered. "I was beginning to suspect you two planned to confess on your deathbeds." Despite everything, something still weighed on Maya. She noticed it in the quiet moments, when Daniel thought no one was looking, when his smile faded just slightly, when his shoulders carried tension he never voiced. One night she finally asked, "Are you happy?" she said softly. He looked surprised. "Of course I am." "Then why do you look like you're waiting for something bad to happen?" Daniel hesitated. Then he told her the truth. "Because most people don't stay once they see all of me," he said quietly. "The wealth, the attention, the enemies, it's a lot." Her chest tightened. "I'm not most people." "I know," he said. "But I still worry." She stepped closer, placing her hand over his heart. "Then stop waiting for me to leave," she whispered. "Because I'm not going anywhere." He closed his eyes briefly, leaning into her touch like a man who had finally found shelter. A week later, Daniel invited Maya and Eleanor to a private dinner. "Just the three of us," he said. "Somewhere special." Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "If this is a proposal, I want to be sitting down." Maya nearly choked on her water. "Grandma." "I'm just saying," Eleanor said calmly. "My heart can't handle surprises." The restaurant overlooked the city from a quiet hilltop, all soft lights and elegant simplicity. Not flashy. Not intimidating. Just beautiful. Daniel pulled out Maya's chair before sitting beside her. Eleanor watched approvingly. "Good manners," she noted. "Rare these days." Dinner was warm, relaxed, almost peaceful. Then Daniel grew serious. "There's something I want you both to know," he said. Maya's stomach fluttered nervously. He turned to Eleanor first. "When I met Maya, I wasn't looking for a relationship," he said. "I was exhausted. Disconnected. Successful on paper, but empty." Eleanor nodded slowly, unsurprised. "Makes sense," she said. "Money without love is just expensive loneliness." Daniel smiled faintly. "Maya changed that. She didn't care about what I owned or who I knew. She cared about how I treated people." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. He reached for her hand. "You reminded me that kindness isn't weakness," he said. "It's strength." Then he looked at Eleanor. "And you reminded me that love should be fearless." Eleanor's expression softened, a rare, unguarded moment. "Well," she said quietly, "someone had to make sure you were worthy." Daniel stood. Maya's pulse skyrocketed. He didn't kneel. Instead, he walked to the window, looking out over the city lights before turning back to them. "I don't want to rush you," he said to Maya. "You've been through enough." Her heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear. "But I do want you to know my intentions." He returned to the table and took her hands in both of his. "I don't just want to be part of your life," he said. "I want to build one with you." Tears spilled down her cheeks. Eleanor dabbed her eyes with a napkin, pretending not to be emotional. "So, not technically a proposal," she muttered, "but very strong proposal energy." Maya laughed through tears. "Yes," she said softly. "I want that too." Daniel's relief was so visible it almost hurt to witness. He leaned forward, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead, tender, reverent, like she was something sacred. On the way out, Eleanor deliberately lagged behind them. Daniel slowed, falling into step beside her. "Well," she said, tapping her cane lightly, "you passed." He looked confused. "Passed what?" "My test." "You've been testing me this whole time?" "Of course," she said matter-of-factly. "Do you think I'd let my granddaughter fall for someone without checking his character?" Daniel chuckled. "Fair enough." She stopped walking, turning to face him. I've met powerful men before, she said. Most of them confuse control with strength. Her eyes softened. But you protect without suffocating. You give without expecting ownership. That's rare. He swallowed, unexpectedly moved. Thank you. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. And if you ever hurt her, she added sweetly, I will still bury you in my garden. Daniel laughed. I wouldn't expect anything less. Outside, Maya waited under the glow of streetlights, watching them approach. Eleanor smiled mischievously. You know, she announced loudly, if I were 50 years younger, I'd steal him from you. Grandma. Daniel grinned. I'm honored. Maya shook her head, laughing despite herself. See, Eleanor said smugly. Perfect man. Maya slipped her arm through Daniel's. Not perfect, she corrected gently. Just right for me. Weeks passed. Life settled into something beautifully ordinary. Maya returned to work with renewed confidence. Daniel continued his business quietly, refusing interviews, avoiding unnecessary attention. But people treated Maya differently now, not because of his wealth but because of how she carried herself. Stronger. More certain. Unapologetically herself. One afternoon, a young coworker asked timidly, How did you end up with someone like him? Maya smiled. I didn't look for perfect, she said. I looked for kind. That evening she found Daniel and Eleanor arguing over a chessboard. You're cheating, Eleanor accused. I'm not, Daniel protested. You just underestimated me. She narrowed her eyes, then smiled slyly. Good, she said. Never underestimate anyone. That's how fools lose everything. Maya watched them, heart full. Two of the strongest people she knew. One bold, one gentle. Both fiercely protective, both stubborn, both loving in their own ways. And somehow they had both chosen her. Later, as she lay beside Daniel, she whispered, Do you ever regret meeting me? He turned toward her, shocked. Never. Not even with all the trouble? He cupped her face gently. You didn't bring trouble into my life, he said. You brought meaning. Tears slipped down her temples into the pillow. I love you, she whispered. His eyes softened, shining with something deeper than happiness. Relief, gratitude, devotion. I love you too, he said. In the next room, Eleanor smiled to herself as she turned off her bedside lamp. Finally, she murmured. Took them long enough. She settled into bed, satisfied. Because she had seen many men in her lifetime. Charming men. Wealthy men. Powerful men. But truly good men? Those were rare. And this time, her granddaughter had found one.